viewers, we're so excited to have you here today. My name is Counselor Janessa, and this is...
I'm Amanda.
And we are so excited to have you here today for Arts and Crafts Pantographs. I have our pantograph expert here, Amanda, and she's going to walk us through a really great and easy way to use lasers to help us with paper pantographs, as well as using automation to help us. So I'm super excited to jump in. So I guess, Amanda, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, so we're going to start with our paper pantographs, and then I'll show you how some of the skills that you need to use the paper pantographs will go into using our automation software.
So I'm seeing here you've got a pantograph that you printed out. Where did you find this? Where can people find pantographs out there in the wild?
There are so many places that you can find pantographs. I bought this one off of Urban Elements, and I got the same design in a printed pantograph version and a version that you can use for the automation.
Ooh, okay, so we're gonna see the same pantograph two different ways, and people can choose, okay, I really like using automation, or I really wanna jump in using the printed version.
Yeah, this design is really nice because it's a nested design, so it will look good even if it's a little bit off. With the laser, you aren't going to get perfect every single time, so it's nice to have a little bit of wiggle room. It's also nice that it has these big, long swirls and these points that you can stop at so that you can shift your body and make sure that everything is working out okay on your pantograph.
So am I going to be actually sewing on this paper? That kind of scares me.
No,
okay.
We are just going to do one row at a time. So the space that this darker pantograph takes up is all that we're going to need at one time. And you may have seen a lot of people quilt from the back, but today I'm going to show you how to do it from the front.
And I noticed we have our front rail really pulled out pretty far, a lot farther than we normally would with our 19-inch machine. Is that so that we have room for the paper pantograph in front?
Yes, so our frames can all extend as much as you need to, which is really great for doing this from the front. And it's nice to be able to quilt the pantograph from the front so that you can see what you're quilting and have the pantograph in front of you.
And would you recommend, before just hopping straight to your quilt, always maybe practicing doodling or following along? What are some ways that I can practice so that I don't ruin my pieced quilt top?
Yeah, so you can use a practice panel, kind of like what I'm using here, just a plain piece of fabric, or you can, with a plain piece of fabric, you don't even need to use the thread. We'll be using thread, but you don't need to. You can have it unthreaded. You could also trace it without even sewing at all.
Oh, okay, so you're saying I can just unthread the needle and it just would poke holes in my fabric, or just follow along, moving just along without even having it going? Oh, that's cool, that's a great idea.
So I have the laser set up on our machine here.
And this is one of our lasers that's compatible with all of our Qnique machines. It's really great because it just plugs right into a port here. If you don't have a Qnique machine, that's okay. We also offer, it's called our Gracie laser, which is compatible. It's really run off a battery operation, and it will connect to any machine. So if you don't have a Qnique and don't have this exact laser, that's okay. We have an option for you as well. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about this laser and how you have it set up.
Okay, so I've got it on the arm here. So we can turn this on. And I found that it's best to have the laser right in front of the hopping foot. That way you can get as much space as your machine can move.
Awesome.
So we'll set it up right in front here.
Oh, you mean just right in front, right in line. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, cool.
Right in front of the foot. And then we'll move this and make sure that we have enough space so that the top of the pantograph will start stitching where we want to. So it's going to start stitching here, so we need to make sure the laser is pointing where.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a little bit easier for us because we're obviously just doing on a practice panel, but if we were doing it in nice sashing or something like that, you'd want to make sure it was lined up a lot more accurately, but we can just kind of go for it.
Yeah. So we can go up here. We want to make sure we have plenty of room for our machine. We can set it up to stitch right there, and we can bring this forward and make sure that we have enough room to get to the very bottom.
Oh, so you just want to make sure your range, you can reach the high points and the low points.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So looks like we have plenty of space. So I'm going to start by pulling the bobbin. So we can move our needle right there, do a single stitch, and pull up our bobbin thread. Then we can press this other button to get the machine started.
And what stitching mode do you have this in right now, Amanda?
I have it in regulated precise, and that is great so that we can stop at each of these points, check the machine.
Oh, I see. And that's one thing I really do like about regulated precise mode is it's going to slow down and speed up at your speed, but it's still going to keep our stitches really nice and neat and consistent. Oh, Amanda, you're making this look so easy.
And it really helps to have these lines to follow. Oh, kind of got off track there.
No, I think it's great. Well, there was one thing. I was actually at a show when we were in Canada together, and I was talking to a few ladies about the laser. And I mean, I say this all the time, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and so I want to get exactly right on the lines. And their tip and trick for really doing a great job with this is just to move along and don't stress too much about it being exactly perfect, right? Just kind of move along, and it's helping you match the flow. It doesn't have to be an exact science, which I think you did a fantastic job with that.
Awesome. So do you want to give it a try?
Oh my gosh, do we want to see me give it a try? All right, beginner laser user, here we go. Let's all be very patient and understanding with me because this might be a little rough, but okay, I'm excited. All right, so first things first, I'm pulling up my bobbin, doing a single stitch. Okay. Oh, I'm so nervous.
That's okay.
All right, here we go. So I've lined it up. It's nice and centered. And here we go.
Watch that laser light, and it really helps to pause at each of the points.
That's where that regulated precise mode really comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got lost. Wait, nope, we're good. There you go. All right, I gotta pause for a second because I feel like I'm like super far away. So what do I do when I'm in this position and I'm feeling awkward and my feet are all the way over here? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so that's another thing is to stop at a point just like you did, and then you can pause your machine and then shift over a little bit, and then you can keep going until you reach the end of the row.
And we actually want to have our machine finished in the needle down spot. That's just really helpful again because it's going to keep me in that exact spot right where I stopped. Okay, so I've shifted my body, feeling a lot more comfortable now, and then I can just start going again. Here we go. And another thing to keep in mind, whoop, that one's a little wonky, is that you really can go however fast or slow you're comfortable, right? And on some of these parts where it's smaller movements, it's probably a lot easier to kind of slow down, and especially with that regulated precise, it will slow down with you. But for me, I felt more comfortable kind of speeding up, especially into those bigger curves, because it just helped me move a little bit smoother. So what's your preference? What do you usually do when you do the pantographs?
Yeah, so if you've got a big long line, getting it as quickly and smoothly as possible is best. But once you start getting to that point, it helps to slow down a little bit so you can pause at the right moment.
Gotcha. Okay, and maybe kind of picking, what would maybe be helpful, you can almost like pick points and draw little dots like, I want to pause here, I want to stop here to kind of keep you going in a nice kind of uniform motion.
Yeah.
So for the sake of time, I'm just going to sew all the way over here to the side and pretend that I just finished this beautiful line of my pantograph. So let's use our imagination. So let me sew on over here. We'll just pretend. And let's say we're to the end of our quilt. And I'm seeing we've got this straight blue line here that lines up right along with my laser. What's this for? What's the purpose?
Okay, so at the beginning, you can use the laser to mark off where you are going to stop with your machine. So this is as far as your machine will go, so that you don't stitch any extra when you are
Gotcha. Because this is like the edge of my quilt, so it's just telling me kind of my safe area, like we do in automation. This is kind of my safe area. Is that right?
Yeah, or the placement of where it was placed.
So how did you mark this on the paper?
So you can check with your laser how far the machine will go, and you'll want to get the back and the front. Make sure that your machine will quilt all along the edge. Okay? Then you can line up your ruler and make sure that you draw a straight line from the top to the bottom so that you know where your stitching is going to stop. And you just need to make sure that you get the lines that are on this side of the marking that you made.
Awesome. So one of the key reasons why people really like to do pantographs, right, is so that they could do an edge to edge all the way across and all the way down their quilt. So we've done kind of a messy version of a pantograph, right?
We're just practicing.
Yeah, this is just practice, right? So just pretend, use your imagination, pretend it's this beautiful arts and crafts pantograph. But so what do I do when I want to get to the next row of my quilt? I'm ready to shift, I'm ready to go on to the next section.
Okay, so you'll have your machine stopped at the point where you're stopped, and then we can unclip this and roll it to the next position. We'll pay attention to the laser and how far it can move, and we'll use these ghosted lines to align the bottom of these stitches that we've already made with the printed pantograph.
So that's going to create kind of that nesting we were talking about.
Yeah, because it's nested, it's really important so that we know how far up this can go into the nested.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's show them exactly how we would roll their quilt. So hopefully, okay, let me hop over here. So we'll take our quilt clips off, get these out of the way for us. Okay, and then we will unratchet. Whoops, maybe. There we go.
Unratchet that and roll it.
This is always the fun part. Okay, tell me when.
Oh, we still need to see our,
okay, so too far.
Yep. Just a little bit there so we can get the bottom. And then you can clip that.
Okay.
And we'll ratchet this. Okay.
There is our quilt clip.
Yeah, here's this side. And this side. Okay, so now we can move our machine over this way, and we will line up our needle with the bottom of this pantograph. And remember, we want the laser to be right in front of the needle, but down here, so that this lines up with the ghosted
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Pantograph. Okay. We can move this down a little bit, give us some space. Okay.
Do a lot of people, do they actually pin the paper to the fabric? Is that something that people do?
Yeah, you can pin it, or I've seen painter's tape, and you can use the painter's tape also to mark off the ending of your pantograph.
Gotcha. Okay, so now we're ready for our next part of the pantograph. So we've lined it all up, we've got our needlepoint to needlepoint, now what?
Okay, so now we want to do the same thing as our last row, make sure that we have enough space. So we can bring it to the top here and at the bottom of the design. Okay. So it looks like we have enough space, so we would just return to our starting place.
And normally we would want to tack down our quilt, right? Again, if this wasn't a practice piece, we want to tack it all down.
Yeah, tack it all down, do a single stitch to bring up our bobbin, and then we can start sewing again. Okay. So now I think we're ready to get to see how setting up a pantograph in automation works.
Perfect. Okay, give us just a second so we can tighten the belts and get automation all loaded. Okay, so we tightened the belts, we got the automation cords all hooked up and ready to go. Amanda's got a few additional instructions for us before we get started on our pantograph using our Quilter's Creative Touch software and our quilt motion set up to our machine. So Amanda, what's next?
Okay, so in order to stitch out this pantograph, we need to know exactly how much space we're going to be filling with our pantograph. So with our paper pantograph, we were just doing it one section at a time. So we didn't need to know exactly how much, but for this quilt, we're going to need, or with this process, with using the automation, we're going to need to know exactly how much space we're going to fill so that we can put that into the software.
Okay, so for this example, we're basically measuring like the remainder of the quilt, but if I wanted to fill in like a certain block or sashing or border, I would measure just that exact portion. So I'm really just determining and measuring, okay, how much am I wanting to fill up with this edge-to-edge pantograph? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, do we have our measure? Oh, here's our measuring tape.
Yeah. Okay, so we can measure the width and the height. So our width is, looks like 31 inches.
Okay, I'll try and remember that.
And our height, you want to hold that there so we can get all of this.
And normally it would probably be easier to do this off the frame, right? Measure it beforehand. Okay.
Yeah, 51.
31 and 51. Okay, I'll remember that.
Remember that. Okay. So, and usually you'll have an idea of how big your quilt top is, like maybe the pattern says how big it is, but you still want to measure it so that you make sure that you have the exact measurements.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got it measured. We've got our quilt clips. Do we need to get that all loaded up?
Yeah, so we'll put our quilt clips on. And take that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now we can open up QCT and start making our automated pantograph. So double click here.
So we're just opening up the software.
So it's to make sure it's in the center. It just needs some space to move.
And when we hear that noise and it kind of shifting around, that's telling us that the software and the quilt motion are all engaging with the machine.
Yep, it's just kind of giving it itself a test. Okay, so now we are going to use the pantograph feature. This is available both in beginnings and in pro. Beginnings is a little bit different, so we're using the pro software, and we're going to show you how to do this in the easy mode in the pro software. Okay. So we'll start by setting our safe area. We want to give ourselves plenty of space, so we'll go off into the batting area, off our quilt top. Yeah, it's where the machine is safe to move.
Gotcha.
Okay. So you might think like, oh, this is safe for my quilts to be stitched on, but it's really where this machine can move.
Gotcha.
And you want to make sure that all of your cords are in the right place too before you start quilting. Okay. So we've set our Panto mode to easy. Okay. If you need to switch it, you can click Panto mode. You've got a bunch of different options. Okay. And we're using easy. Okay. This easy mode is a lot like setting up a paper pantograph, because we are going to tell it how tall the pantograph is going to be and then just how much space we want to get it covered. Okay. So we're going to start with the total width and the total height.
And that's those measurements we did earlier, right? 31 and 51, I remembered.
Yeah, so we'll set the width to 31,
Okay.
and the height to 51. Okay. You can kind of see it's changed to be rectangular, and this space is a lot wider than our quilt motion or our frame. So we're going to need to sew this in zones, and just like with our pantograph, we had to shift our quilt for each row. We'll have to do this in different zones. Each zone might be a few rows at a time, but we are going to have to shift our quilt for each zone.
Perfect. Okay.
So now I'm going to select my pattern. So you can tap this button here to select pattern. And I'm going to open the same design that I used for the paper pantograph. I purchased both the paper version and the digital version. So I put it in this folder called Purchase Patterns. You can select it and click Open. You can see only one design has filled in right now, but we are going to give Panto Stacker a little bit more information, so the easy mode will fill in all the rest of the designs. So I'm going to set the pattern height. So you can tap here for pattern height, and I'm going to set the pattern height to 6 inches. 6 and OK. And you can see that easy mode has filled in from top to bottom, but it hasn't filled in side to side. So I'm going to make a couple of adjustments so that the designs fill in from side to side. So this button at the top with the hearts, it will adjust how the design fills in. Okay. So I'm going to tap it one time so that the blue circle is at the top. And that will make it so the designs all connect and fill in from one side to the other without wrapping around. Next, I want the designs to stretch out from side to side. So I'm going to click this next button that says Center, so it will switch to Stretch. And this is going to ask us if it's okay to unlock the aspect ratio. So we'll click Yes, and the design will stretch to fill the space. Then we need to make this design nest by tapping the Scale button. And you can tap that one time and you can see that it has started to nest and fill in up above and down below the design. If you think that the design is stretching too much or too little, you can change how much it stretches by using this step button on the right side. Make it bigger or tiny or small, but this medium amount seems to work well for this design.
Okay, so you're just kind of, in some ways, just kind of adapting and testing things until you find what you really like the look of. Is that right? It just kind of takes a little bit of wiggle room because each design's a little bit different.
Yeah, and as you're playing with it, you'll find out what each of these buttons can adjust.
Perfect. And I know there's a lot of really great help files that can walk you through what each of those different settings and stuff are too. So if you have more questions about that, be sure to check those out.
Okay. So now that we've got this all designed how we want it to look, all we have to do is click Sew in Zones, and then we can start marking our area, and it'll start and we can get it started stitching out. Perfect. Okay. So we'll click Sew in Zones.
And we're picking Sew in Zones because it's going across the whole area of our quilt. If I was doing just, again, like one small border or one bit of like sashing or something like that, I would just do single placement.
Yeah. So this is asking if I want to save my sewing session. I'm going to click No, but if you are using a real quilt, you're definitely going to want to save that pattern so that you can go back to it if something happens with your automation.
Yeah, say your power goes out or you need to take a break, you're not going to sew all through the night, you'll want to make sure and save that. Okay, so we've clicked Sew in Zones, and now we're to the portion where we need to mark our center. So show us how to do that.
Yeah, so to find the exact center of our quilt top, let's go to the ruler tool in the quilting interface screen. To find that, you need to go to the toolbox, and then the ruler icon there. Then we can go to the edge of the quilt over here and the edge over this way and tap the other side of the ruler. And we want this machine to move to the center. And this icon here means it'll move the machine to the center of the two places that you
Oh, I love that.
Yes. Okay. And yeah, we can even use this to place our sticker underneath the hopping foot and do a single stitch right into the sticker so we know exactly where this placement is going to be placed. Okay. So we'll use our toolbox to get a single stitch as well. Okay. Then we can click back to get out of the ruler, and we can tap this center placement button to place our design. we'll need to release our carriage and move the machine to our starting point. So you can see on the screen, the green circle is our starting point. So we'll give it an estimate of where it's going to start. And we'll do a single stitch on the quilting interface screen. And then we can click sew.
I wish we could stay here all day for Arts and Crafts Pantographs to watch the rest of this project sew out. Unfortunately, we're pretty limited on time. So Amanda, for the next steps, if you can just walk them through really quickly what they can expect next.
Okay, so once your machine is done stitching out the pantograph, you're going to need to move to the next zone. The machine will walk you through everything, but you need to make sure that you are following all the directions and marking each step. Okay. So the machine will move to the center where you'll place the sticker underneath the hopping foot, just like we did. And for the first step, then you'll do a single stitch into the sticker, roll your quilt to give it enough space, and it will show you how much space that it needs. Then you will place the design again. So the amount that you move your quilt won't matter, but you'll get it close so that you know that you have enough space to fit the whole pantograph.
And it seems like a lot, but what really is nice about the Quilter's Creative Touch software is it really does walk you through each of those steps, step by step, tells you exactly which button to press. Again, thank you so much, Amanda, for being our pantograph expert. We have loved our time here at Camp Grace and hope you enjoy the rest of the day.